So thinking about, discerning truth from lies, what are some traps that in your experience or your own life you've seen, especially teenagers in high school, middle school, you've seen them fall into, and what tips do you have for those?
Yeah, this is a really great question. If I could go back and tell my teenage self anything, it would probably be these things. I think the first one is no person is ever going to complete you. I think that we are told through movies and books and messages that we receive that we're not complete in and of ourselves, let me just clarify. I think that there's a completion that happens when we give our lives to Jesus. And I think that's the only place that we can have our needs met and fulfilled and find belonging and find a sense of peace and joy and hope. But I think too much of my young life I spent going to people going, hey, will you love me? Will you determine my worth and my value? Hey, I'm gonna let you in here, and in exchange, will you please just remind me that I'm lovable? And I always came up short. I always came up wanting and desiring something that never happened. And so I think that's a huge trap that any woman can fall into, but particularly high schoolers, where we look to a guy or we look to a friend or we look to even like an older mentor, and we say, hey, will you ascribe to me my value and my worth? Like what you think of me will determine what I think of myself. When in actuality, our worth was determined when God knit us together at the cross. He loves us, and it is a secure and it's a complete love. And he has made us as his workmanship or his crafts. We are crafted by him with good works to do. And so that's a lesson I continue to learn, if I'm honest. I don't know if I've learned it fully, but it's one I have to remind myself. Another trap that we fall into is comparison. And I think the next two, comparison and competition, particularly for young women and particularly for all women, is what will derail us faster than anything else.
Yeah.
Especially in a culture of social media. We can get on and just look and scroll and go, oh, well, they have this thing. I want that thing. I feel slighted. Their gain is my loss. Or their loss is my gain. The reverse of that could also be true.
And
go ahead.
I think just about the scrolling, like I've heard it said so many times, like, oh, but that's their highlight reel, like they're picking and choosing. And that truth has not helped me stop looking or comparing. Like, okay, I know that's their highlight reel, but that's still a good high,
Exactly. Like that's their highlight reel, but it's still a moment in their life.
Yeah.
And it may be a moment that you want, even though we know moments are fleeting. It may be a moment that I want. It was still captured on that one little second shot.
Right.
But I think we so often fall into two camps where we compare ourselves with somebody else. We either fall in and comparison and competition are very similar. And I've heard it said, you put somebody in a competition, there's always a winner and there's always a loser. So either you're going to come out the winner or you're going to come out the loser. Either way, those two people in that competition are coming out alone. And we need each other. We need to rally around each other, have that mentality, which it's so hard. Again, I am 46 years old and I still wrestle and I struggle through having to discern the truth and the lie here. But having that mentality of, if she wins, I win. We're in this together. I need that person. I need to share my weakness with that person. I need them to know that, hey, I think you do this thing better. And that it takes humility, and it also takes security in who God has made you to be. And it's hard to do. But if we could really rally around each other and be the person. I was just having this conversation with my daughter the other day. I have a friend in my life, and I recently, I don't see her often, and I called her recently and told her some good news. And she immediately dismissed it. And I was so discouraged. And my daughter was like, it's hard to have a friend who won't celebrate with you. And I'm like, yeah, so be the biggest cheerleader you can for your friends. It will serve you well.
And I think too, for not your friends too, like,
oh yeah,
we've talked about in life group that you don't have to be best friends with everyone, because everyone is different and you make deeper connections, but you can still support, encourage, and celebrate them when they get into college or get an award at school, or, you know, whatever it is, you know, do great at a track meet. Like, you can still celebrate, lift each other up. I learned so much from you in sisterhood, and I just wanted to read Hebrews 10:23. It says, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promises faithful, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. Let us not give up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Like, having that eternal perspective of like, we don't know, especially right now, like, we don't know what's happening day after day. So like, why wouldn't we spur one another on? Why wouldn't we continue meeting and encouraging and loving these other women that are around us, and really doing it from the heart too, not just like, good job for you, you know?
Yeah.